Today in the motorcycle world, we have some very unique news, and this gives us a great opportunity to talk about one of the strangest motorcycles slash scooters of all time, and one of the rarest that Honda either did or didn't build. That's a little bit of a strange segue, and more on that in a moment. What we're talking about is a bike that's up for sale right now on Iconic Motorbike Auctions, which is not a company that we're affiliated with at all, but it is a website that I spend maybe too much time on. And the bike is a 1992 Honda Easy Snow. This is a very strange mini bike with a very interesting backstory. Now, to give you some of the fundamentals of this little bike, we have to go over to the 1991 Honda Easy 90 or the Easy Cub. These are little mini bikes that Honda made from 1991 to 1996. It was called the Easy 90 here in the States, Easy 9 in Japan. It's a 90cc two-stroke, air-cooled little bike, even despite all the bodywork that's on this. And the idea was to make this kind of rugged, futuristic scooter specifically for off-roading. As you can see, it doesn't have a headlight. It's not really going to be a street bike, but the design and the idea around this little bike was to make this very easy and very approachable for anyone to ride. So say you had a kid that you wanted to put on a little bike for them to start learning, or really anybody who's a beginner who is trying to get their initial feeling for riding a bike off-road. This was the idea of the Honda Easy 90 or this Easy Cub. And it's part of the Honda Cub family that's been doing exactly that for decades and decades, so much so that the Super Cub is the best-selling motor vehicle of all time. So Honda knows how to make a bike that is easy for people to get on. This one, though, was particularly strange. So there is this bodywork covering all of the major components. There's even bodywork over the chain drive going to the rear wheel. So it's a very maybe strange-looking bike. It's very 90s, kind of the 90s idea of what a futuristic mini bike for riding off-road, I guess, would look like. It's a twist and go setup, so it's got a scooter kind of variable transmission. It does have electric start. There is also a Kickstarter for the bike. So if you do run out of battery, you could use that. But again, part of the idea was to make it as easy as possible. That's why you don't have a manual clutch. That's why you don't have to kickstart it so long as you keep up with the battery. So that was the general idea around this strange little bike. But what's even much stranger is the Easy Snow. Now, this is something that Honda themselves did create some promotional material around. Actually, if I scroll to the bottom of this listing on Iconic Motorbike Auctions, you can see that this owner who's selling this Easy Snow does actually have some documents, some of those promotional materials from Honda. But here's where a little bit of the controversy around this Easy Snow comes in. Because Honda did create some of these promotional materials from the appearance of it. But depending on who you ask, it's possible that either Honda never made any of these. It's possible that Honda did make these, but as kits for you to apply to an Easy 9, or some people think that Honda actually produced these for about 250 to 300 units and in Japan only. Now, whichever one of these is the truth, it's a little bit fuzzy. However, one thing that is certain is that these bikes are incredibly rare. Seeing one of these pop up for sale is very unusual. It's not something that happens a lot because, again, at best, there were 300 of these that were produced between 1992 and 1993 total. So there's very few of these bikes that exist, period. And it's essentially just a regular Easy 9 or Easy 90, but with a ski up front and a rubber track in the rear to obviously make it capable of going through the snow. Now, this is a 90cc two-stroke and an older one at that, so I wouldn't imagine that this is an especially high performance or powerful tracked bike. Some of the timber sleds that you can get for modern dirt bikes work really well, especially when they're paired with a relatively powerful dirt bike like a 450. Something like this is probably going to be a little bit on the slow side, but would have a slightly lower seat height. Again, I'm not sure how well it would actually ride. Not that many people out there actually know, because I've never seen one of these in person. Most people haven't seen one of these in person. I've been through some of Honda's collection, Honda's own private collection of motorcycles, prototype cars, vintage cars, even engine cutouts and all kinds of cool things. I got to walk through this warehouse that Honda owns and check out some of their own private collection, which was really cool. And they did have an Easy Cub in there, an Easy 90, but it was not an Easy Snow. So these bikes, yeah, very difficult to come across. I'd be surprised if Honda themselves even have one of these in their collection, is how rare they are. And this one right now, the bidding, actually, I think even since I started filming, unless it just took a while for this to refresh, the bidding is up to now $4,600. The reserve price is still not met. There's a little, at the time of filming this, there's a little under 3 days left in the auction. February 8th is when this auction ends. So I'm not saying you should go out there and spend however much money this may or may not end up selling for to get it. But it's certainly something that has tempted me a little bit, because I do have a particular affinity for Honda mini bikes in general, but especially the rare and kind of strange older ones. As some of you may or may not know, we here at TFL, well, me specifically, personally, owns a Motocompo. So a 1983 Honda Motocompo. That's one that they made about 53,000 of. So there's quite a few more Motocompos out there than there are these Easy Snows by a huge margin. But that's a really fun little bike, something cool to ride around the neighborhood, and also just a cool thing to have kind of on display in the garage. If you had an Easy Snow, for people who are nuts about some of Honda's motorcycle history and especially mini bike history, this is the kind of thing that doesn't appeal to tons of people, granted, but I think it's a really cool story because of how uncommon these little bikes are. This one is in Belgium, if I remember right, looking at the top of the listing. So you would have to figure out shipping if you're based here in the States to get it back to you, and that could be a little bit of a challenge. I think that's one of the things that's honestly keeping me from bidding on it, which is probably a good thing. I have enough old Hondas, 4 of them actually, so I probably don't need to spend my money on this. But it is a really cool piece of motorcycle history, one that I thought was worth highlighting in a video just because of how rare these are and how much we love tiny little Honda bikes. Now, regardless of what kind of motorcycle you have, or even if you don't have a bike and you just drive cars, be sure to check out Rider Justice. They're linked down below. These are friends of ours that we've been working with for years, and we've kept working with them because of how easy it is to work with them. So if you ever need legal representation on either 2 wheels or 4, I highly recommend you reach out to the team, Scott and them over at Rider Justice. They do this not just as a business, but because it's something that they are genuinely passionate about. So if you ever need legal representation, make sure you call Scott first. Now, as for this little bike, you have to let me know down in the comments below. Do you think it would actually be fun to ride? Because I think that's a question that's looming in my head. And how much we all expect this to actually end up going for if it sells at all, because it's not clear what the reserve price actually is. It's something that I hope sells. I hope it sells to someone nearby enough to where we're based in Colorado that I could actually ride it in some snow, because that would make for an epic video. It's one of the reasons that there's a little devil on my shoulder telling me maybe I should bid for it. But I think I'm going to exercise some self-control and personally not run the bidding up. So once again, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Pretty cool little piece of Honda history. That's all for this video, and we'll see you in the next.